For generations, Australian agriculture has been central to Australia's prosperity. It's our vision that it remains this way into the future. We know that the smartest and most innovative farmers are the ones that are actively engaged in business planning, using professional services to complement their operations at the right time. We are here to share the stories of some of the farmers that have used these services, and we will uncover the different ways farmers are building better businesses.
Hello and welcome to the Department of Primary Industries Smart Farm Business Webinar Series. My name's Gillian Kilby and we're coming to you live from the Exchange in Narrabri. We're joined by the team at Humans of Agriculture to bring you this webinar series on smart farm business with the Department of Primary Industries. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Gamilaroi people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We'd like to extend that respect to any Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander people watching online today. And we'd like to encourage you to drop the land on which you join us from into the chat. There'll be a chat function open for the entirety of this webinar, so you can ask questions and we'll hand those questions on to our guest throughout the program. Today, we're going to be discussing the Farm Business Resilience Coaching Program. The program is funded by the Department of Primary Industries and we're joined by Rebecca Fing from Paddock Consulting. Welcome, Beck. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Beck, you're from Gundawindi. You're grown up in Dirranbandi. You're a mother of three. You're an artist. You're a founder. You're a business owner. And you've been coaching with the Department of Primary Industries for the last 2.5 years, since the inception of the program. I'm really keen to hear about your career journey and how you landed here as a coach.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. So that's a pretty solid list. It's very generous. I started my career actually. I studied a Bachelor of Rural Science at UNE.
Were you a Rob girl or an Albies girl?
I was a Rob girl.
Yep.
Actually, I was a proud Rob girl. Yeah. And I did agronomy, and all the way through, I was going to be going back to up to Southwest Queensland to be an agronomist, and realised pretty quickly that I really valued the human and the business side of agriculture more so, and also attention to detail and some of those things that maybe you need to be a really technical agronomist weren't necessarily my strong point. So I ended up in a position in agricultural extension, which was fabulous, learning the mechanics of project management and how people work and stuff. Did some other qualifications along the way in HR and risk management and a few other bits and bobs. And I was the ripe old age of 22, so I'm going to expose myself and say nearly 20 years ago, and I put a call into my beautiful dad and said, I think I might start my own business. And he sort of shook his head in dismay and said, well, you've got nothing to lose, which was incredible. Pretty true.
It's pretty wonderful advice from a father to say to his daughter, go for it. You've got nothing to lose.
It was, look, I think it was anticipated to come across that way, but it also came across like, oh, well, go back and get a job if you don't make a go of it. So it was true. I didn't have a lot to lose. And so Paddock was born back then. And absolutely, I definitely didn't start as a business coach. I did a lot of project work for different industry groups, an extension of the work I'd been doing. But as time went on, I had the privilege of over a number of years of having been on, I can claim now, over 500 farms. And I used to say from Emerald to the Adelaide Hills, and I can now say across 6 states. So I haven't been to Tasmania. And
this is in your Paddock consulting role across 500 farms in Australia to see the diverse range of agricultural businesses we have out there.
100%. So what we have seen, and just a bit of context there, it's auditing, it's training, it's consulting, all different things have taken me into these businesses. But you got to know the functionality of them. Mm-hmm. And I got to see a lot of things done really well and a lot of things done really badly. And as a result, Paddock has grown and evolved. And now we sort of sit under a bit of an umbrella of helping professionalise. And I say small business, majority of our work is in ag, but just businesses and really at every level. So we do a bit of work in compliance and a little bit of work in auditing, risk management, strategy, people, all of the things. So to go back and answer your question, Jill, how that it gave me the confidence to say maybe I could share some of these learnings as a coach, and also made me realise I didn't have to be an expert in every field to go in and be brave enough to ask the right questions. So that's, I guess, the abreasted version of what brought me to engage. I've had a really long and lovely relationship with New South Wales DPI in a number of fields across the time, different projects and the like. And when I was asked if I'd put my hand up to be a coach, I sort of questioned what value I could bring. And with a little bit of encouragement, I'm really glad that I'm part of the family.
When you're a business coach with the Farm Business Resilience Program, what in particular do you do for your clients? What's the coaching role?
It's a really good question. And for me, it's sometimes been a bit tricky because I do act as a consultant to farm businesses too, and I'm used to helping them and maybe doing some of the things, whatever needs to be done.
Yep.
But for me, the role of a coach really is encouraging a business to look outside the box, to basically I'm a massive subscriber to the notion that systems and structure create success. So we go in, we'll be brave enough to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Also bring in that fresh set of eyes. So ask, maybe challenge the status quo, ask, why do you do that? Because in agriculture, as you know, lots of things are done out of history and legacy, not necessarily because it's the right way. And sometimes because they've been done on the fly, it wasn't too broken, so it hasn't been fixed. So as a coach, and depending on the mechanism at which you use with the program at hand, we do lots of stuff on Zoom, which we all know is really effective and a nice way to connect. Sometimes some farm visits, sometimes some workshops, some group coaching sessions, but really just aim to support those businesses. And under this banner, there's some really tangible outcomes that each business owner will achieve or receive. They are a business plan and also a handle on a bank-ready budget. But we can also contribute to those businesses as a coach in any way that will build resilience for that business.
Beck, you've also been on the other side of coaching. You're both a coach through the Resilience Program, but you're also a recipient of coaching in your own business. Can you tell me about why you choose to be coached?
Yeah, for sure. So my coaching journey probably started with some personal and life coaching, back looking for some clarity and some direction as an individual.
When you were 22, when you were 25, is it at every age?
No, a little bit probably in the beginning, and I'm not saying that I'm finished there either. And sometimes, and I had a really blessed upbringing in childhood, like we all did in the bush, but you carry a bit of baggage, and just to unpack some different things. So that was an opportunity for someone outside of my life to ask why I do things the way I do. And then from a business coaching perspective, we do have a couple of different businesses. And I believe, Jill, one of the biggest values I bring as a coach, but also my coach has brought to me, is this piece around accountability.
Yeah.
And I knew as a small business owner that I didn't necessarily report to too many.
Yep.
And so if things that
you're just at the top on your own.
I sort of was.
If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it.
And in the back of my mind, say, for example, I should review my insurances, should review this. But if it never makes that urgent important list, you know, in your work, it's hard to work on things that you know will bring value down the track when there's lots of opportunities on the table in the here and now. So for me, the coaching was an opportunity to bring a set of fresh eyes into my business. And also here, we've all in our businesses had mentors along the way, some informal, some people that you thought, oh, you're pretty cool, I'm going to keep an eye on your work, versus the coach. In this instance, this was a paid engagement, it was very structured. And what it did do is, again, asking those questions, why do you do that? And also creating efficiencies, challenging some of the way. And I was not necessarily doing things the way that they should have been done. I was doing things the way that they work just enough. And I always maintain, I've got a beautiful team now, and I maintain that it's not my way or the highway, it's my way or a better way.
I love it. My way or a better way.
Yeah.
Tell us about a recent client you worked with who found a better way.
Oh, where do we start here? We have had 18 coachees under this program, and everyone from flower farmers to beekeepers to produce, broadacre farmers and livestock producers. I think a better way, it's more about understanding clarity for a start. What are they trying to achieve? And in line with their goals and values, making sure that there is that alignment, Jill, between what they're trying to achieve and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we'd like to be financially viable. Well, what you're doing is not financially viable, and making that connection. Or we'd like to be sustainable and regenerative. Well, this isn't. So whatever it is that those milestones or those indicators of success for those business owners, and making that connection between operational activity, if you will, and resource allocation is another one that people get sick of me rabbiting on about. So
it's like you've lifted the lid and said,
yeah,
I know you want to be here, but you're actually here. And if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be way over there.
Yeah.
When aspirationally, you as a business, as a family, as an operation want to be here.
For sure. And look, we have a bit of a philosophy that's caged around a bit of a roadmap. So we put the destination is that business vision, mission, the legacy, the reputation. But then we need to work back and make sure we've got these guide rails in place to keep us on track. And that is, our budget. It is the way we're spending our time, we're spending our money, and we're using our skills, we're allocating our resources, our machinery, whatever it might be, and finding where those gaps in those guide rails are, and creating the way to pave the bricks, as you will, to get from where you are today to where you want to be at a point in the future. And usually I see my role as a coach as padding the gaps in those guide rails.
So I want to talk about a few more recent clients, but first I think we'll jump to one of the case study videos. We're going to go and have a look at John and Jackson Lindsay, who are on the Kalang River up at Uranga, and we want to have a look at their experience in the Farm Business Resilience Coaching Program.
We're on the Kalang River and Lindsay's Oyster Farm. We've been here for 35 years growing oysters. Myself, my wife, and I have 6 children. They've all been in the business at one stage. I've only got one left now. That's Jackson, who's in this program with me now. He's eventually going to take the oyster farm on.
My role within the business is, I guess you'd say, I'm the manager. I keep an eye on things and make sure everything's running as it should be. The missus found an ad for the program on Facebook. She showed me it. Said, yeah, we need to get into this. And I spoke to mum and dad, and I didn't have to convince them. They were on board straight away. We applied for it. We had a Zoom meeting, and they asked us a few questions, what we wanted out of it, what we could see it being of benefit for us. And they got back to us and said, congratulations.
Well, the Farm Business Resilience Program has been unbelievable from Jackson and myself. It's helped us with the financial side of it, giving us a little bit more initiative to take on tasks and progress a little bit more of the business of what we would have normally done.
So every fortnight, we sat down in front of the computer and we spoke to Stuart, our coach, for an hour and a half sometimes, and just sort of nutted out what we need to do, where we need to go. I'd say getting the floating bags in the water would have probably been my biggest win.
So we primarily grow ours in rafts, which the oysters are suspended under them. But in other rivers, they're using a billow technique with floats on top.
I went down to a farm in Merimbula and spent a week down there working with them, and I saw the benefits of it and saw the best way to do it and how to do it. And I can just see that in the future, for us, it's going to be the way to go.
We have changed and we're starting to implement that system now, and it is going to change the business.
The younger ones are growing faster. The bigger ones are fattening earlier, faster, better. We've only sort of just trialled it at the moment, but I can see our harvest window going from about 4 to 5 months to probably 6 or 7 months. That's just driving profit and the bottom dollar in the end.
It probably would have happened, but it might have taken a little bit longer for me to implement it because it wasn't my idea.
For me, not being very business minded or financially minded, I found that the biggest gain for me. Just going through spreadsheets and cash flow forecasts and just the money side of things was a big win for me. I think communication was a big thing. Me and Dad aren't the biggest communicators, and we've been pushed a lot to, talk more openly about, the business and where it's going and what we want. And
I would say to anybody that even had the slightest thought about getting into a coaching program to get in and do it. It's helped us so much in the last 12 months, and I can see benefits coming forever with it. And we will keep in contact with our coordinator because he's willing to help us all the way through.
I guess it just teaches you all about business, and you get financials, you get planning. Communication was a big part of it. I think it just brings all of business together, just simplifies things a bit for you. Anyone would see some benefit of it. It's been a big change for us just now, and even years to come. We'll still look back on stuff that we've learnt over this past 8-9 months it'll all come in handy. It'll all help. So yeah, if you're thinking about it, definitely do it.
I can see Jackson is going to change a lot of things, and I know whatever he does will be a success. As far as I'm concerned, anybody that's running a business should have a look at this program, because it has made such a difference to our business now, and it will make a big difference to it in the years to come.
John and Jackson Lindsay's story of transforming their oyster business through the Farm Business Resilience Coaching Program has been really worthwhile for our audience to see. Beck, what insights do you take away from watching that farm family progress through the coaching program?
I guess a few things, Jill. Some of the highlights for me are probably around what we'd call some of the non-reportable benefits, which absolutely a handle on the figures and some really solid planning and risk management. But to hear them speak about improved communication when we're talking about that sense of fulfillment and achievement and satisfaction, where in a lot of instances, these farming businesses, we are farming with people we love the most, and they do double as our home. So some of that stuff and the warmth that comes through those stories, as well as some really genuine materialised financial gains. And the other take home, which was right at the end and coming through from both the father and the son, was how these programs, they're not a flash in the pan. They really do set up your business and they return end on end. So it's obvious that Stuart, the coach involved here, has set up some structures and systems that these business owners can go back to time and time again. So as another issue arises in the future, or another opportunity, they can reflect on that time and those comments around them, the benefits far outweighing the actual length of the program. That's what hit home for me with that story.
I loved seeing the system on the wall of all the different oyster racks and the timing. They've obviously got into the systems and processes.
Yeah.
There was just a short moment in that clip where John said it wouldn't have happened as quickly if it wasn't for the coaching program. What is it about the coaching program that moves decisions along?
For sure. I'm going to go back and say for some businesses it wouldn't have happened at all, because and in that instance, absolutely, it was going to happen. It just took some time, and we had to oil the cogs. But let's think about the businesses that have never had anyone or have had the time or opportunity to work on their business and take yourself out of that operational grind.
Day to day, getting it done.
Yeah, working so hard that to be a fly on the wall in your own business, which is what the coaching program really makes you do. And really looking down and going, wow, I never sort of thought of that. That's a great idea, rather than, we thought about that, but we just hadn't got there. Well, you know what, mate, if you get there, this is going to be the result. So
I thought it was interesting that the partner of the son brought the coaching program and said, hey, I really think this would be great for us. What happens if there's resistance from one member of the family to join the coaching program? Have you got advice on how to get that family member over the line?
Yeah, it's a really good question. We have had coachees where, look, I'm here, mum and dad weren't that keen. And I've actually, in some of our experience, said, well, why don't you see if mum and dad want to join, just for sit in the back. They don't have to. And to encourage people that the coaches, we are, absolutely experienced professionals. We're also bloody real people. And and where my husband and I have some involvement in our family farming business, I get it.
Yeah.
So just being able to nurture the experience from the outset and say, look, give us a go, but also us being able to suggest the tangible benefits, because it also depends what angle you need to pitch to someone, whether it's like, we've got enough ideas going on here, we don't need those. Is it around refinement? What is it that coaching business is looking for? And there is quite a process, Jill, to apply for and become a part of the coaching program for a couple of reasons. Firstly, to determine whether or not you're a fit, but also to fit you with the best coach.
Well, tell me about that process for applying. Obviously, you jump online, you fill out your details. Who is eligible to be part of this program?
Yeah, so absolutely any fishers or farmers in across New South Wales. So while it is a national funded program, where obviously this pocket of opportunity is coming to New South Wales producers, so you have to be a producer. For me, there's some criteria around being a genuine and bona fide producer as well. And for me, one of the things that's important would be someone who has an appetite to grow and change, and an open mind towards that. And the other thing is, I always say to my guys, the harder you come to the table, the harder I will. So we can definitely have our scheduled calls, but I'll say if you get that done a bit earlier, give me a call and we'll keep moving. We'll keep the can kicked down the road. So in terms of eligibility, yeah, absolutely. Jump on, you put in your details. There is a process to make sure the right people end up being allocated the right resources. But also for me, absolutely come on board, but come when you're ready and willing to, come to the table and make some change in your business.
And what are the strengths that you as a coach bring to the table? Where do you stay in your lane with the coaching, and then what do you outsource to other coaches? Because it's not one and done for every participant, is it?
No, and look, every business who becomes a coach, and that was quite a rigorous process, has a slightly different mechanism in which they do that. I am very open and wholehearted around the fact that my financial literacy is not the best and not as good as that a lot of other people, and especially in the coaching program.
But your strengths are that comms, HR, OHS. Tell us about your strengths.
Yeah, for sure. So we business strategy and planning, I'm really passionate about. So right from a high level down to operational planning and efficiencies. And then again, that risk management, compliance, work health and safety, HR, the real human element.
Sorry to interrupt, but you were telling me before about the levels of planning you go to.
Oh, yes.
What are the levels? Like there's the 5-year plan.
And look, if you're not into planning, Jill, tap out for the next 30 seconds. But at the end of the day, it's back to that comment before of connecting where you'd like to be at some point into the future to today's to-do list. And we do that by working with the clients. Again, if there's an appetite, because people are going, this is not my jam, I'm actually here for this, and that's fine. But we start with a strategic plan. Where would you like to be? That'll manifest as a business plan, an annual operational plan and priority plan. Then we do some seasonal planning. That then drops down to a monthly strategic meeting, weekly operational meeting, today's to-do list. So that connection, because at the end of the day, if you want to be here, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to get there? And that's that roadmap we were chatting about, and how that sort of can filter down.
I love that anyone who applies to the business coaching program can be matched with a number of very qualified, highly competent business coaches who have a background in agriculture. They're passionate about the outcomes for the farmer or the fisher, and they're also really qualified in different areas. So when the recipient comes in, you can say to them, you actually need this coach. We're going to match you with the person most able. So we're going to jump to a case study about another coach, one of your colleagues.
Just comment there, though, that if you end up being coached by me, I do outsource the financial literacy side, and yet we put a team around our coachees, and that was with permission from the department, because I want to stay in my own lane, as you said, and I don't want to try and be everything to everyone. I can definitely get my way around a balance sheet, but so giving the coach, exactly like you say, those skills that they need to improve their business, we do that in a bit of a team approach at House Paddock.
Love it. It's so important, and it's one of the benefits of the program. Far-reaching, right across New South Wales, but also really committed to ensuring the right farm business gets matched to the right coach.
100%.
So why don't we jump to Stuart Goodfellow? We had the opportunity to meet with Stuart and talk to him about the farm business coaching he offers, and he's going to talk about some of the clients he's looked after as well.
G'day, my name's Stuart Goodfellow. I'm a farm business consultant. We're in the beautiful area of Port Macquarie on the New South Wales mid-north coast. And as a business consultant or a business coach, what I do is help businesses understand where they are today, where they want to get to, and what's actually getting in their way. So my job is to help unpack some of that stuff and work out how we can get from there to there efficiently, productively, and everyone with a smile on their faces. I've got an agricultural background, so my family grew up on the land, but I was really interested in the business side of agriculture. Farmers are great. They know what to do. They know when to do it. They know how to do it. They also are very decisive, and if they don't have the right amount of information, they go looking for it. So I speak 2 languages, accounting and English, right? So my job is to try and bring those 2 things together. My job is to try and make sure that you're not an accountant, but you know your numbers so you can make those decisions which you're great at. So the Farm Business Resilience Program is a collaborative initiative developed through their Future Drought Fund, and the DPI provides some funding to be able to help farm businesses or business owners, entrepreneurs, to develop their plans moving forward. So people sometimes say, when's the right time to reach out as well? And it's like, well, do they need a business coach when things are going really well? Well, or when things are not going so well, or somewhere in between? And my answer is now is the right time. What do you got to lose? You jump in there, you have a go, you have a conversation. If it's right, great. If it's not, well, so be it. So the eligibility criteria for the Farm Business Resilience Program are typically farmers. They've got a business that's a going concern, and they're interested in learning, and they're curious to get a little bit more out of the business than what they've got. I've worked with cattle farmers, pig farmers, oyster growers, macadamia growers, mixed farming, and having that diversity in a group is fantastic because they can all lean off each other. I'm not an expert in any one of those disciplines. I expect the farmer to be an expert in his farm and in his industry. What I bring together is the business side. So if you're great at doing your own industry stuff, and I've got a bit of an idea around business, we pulled those two things together. The synergy is just amazing. So what the program looks like, we do an initial assessment, work out where you're at, where you want to get to. We do a checklist, which is looking at your risk analysis and the sort of things that you need to work on a little bit more, maybe some things that you've really nailed. We look at an operational plan to work out what needs to happen during the season. And then we look at some budgeting too, some financials, some cash flow stuff. I introduce 14 key ratios, so you get a bit of an understanding about where you're sitting. We do some benchmarking stuff, and then we do some stuff around communications and come up with a farm business plan. So you've got something in your hot little hand that you can work with, and it's a working document. So I've worked with a macadamia farmer, and in the macadamia world, they're facing some challenges. Cost of production is here. What they're getting for their macadamias is down here. We can't do anything about commodity prices, but what we can do is have an impact on their planning. So what we did look at is looking at diversifying, and he's now replanted a different variety of ag crop to subsidise what's happening in the macadamia world. So I'm working with these oyster farmers, and they've signed on to the program. So it's father, son. It was a little bit succession, but it was really also about understanding the business. But they knew they wanted to expand, they just weren't too sure how. Fast forward, after we've implemented some risk analysis, we've done some business planning, we've done some financial analysis, son's come in, and together they're now collaborating on where they want to take the business, which is awesome. Some of the key things a business coach can help you with is making sure that everybody, all the stakeholders on the farm are aligned. We're all heading in the same direction. People need business coaching at different times of their business. It's not necessarily when they're at the high or the low or going down or going up. It really revolves around what it is that they need right now. Sometimes business coaching might go 3 months, 5 months, 10 months. I've got clients who are sitting with me now for 10 years. If we break through that plateau and they get to where they need to go, I walk away, which is great. So the process to join the program is really easy. You just go on the website. So you just type in Farm Business Resilience Program. You scroll down, there's a little tab there that says EOI, Expressions of Interest. If it's not 5 minutes, it's 3 minutes. Just put in your name and your details. They'll give you a call. They'll talk to you a little bit more about the program, and you can get started. So people often ask me, Stuart, what's the cost to business coaching? Yes, there's a financial commitment. This thing's heavily subsidised, but you do have to put your hand in your pocket. There is a cost in time as well. So you actually got to work on your business, not just in your business. But my question is, what's the cost if you don't do anything? Do you just keep going the way you're going and you're happy with that? Have you hit a plateau, or do you think your business can get a little bit better? And if you think that's the case and you can't get there yourself, then why not engage a business coach? You might be surprised with what's going to happen.
It's an incredible case study with Stuart Goodfellow because he speaks about the range of services that the coaches offer. He speaks about the range of industries and the stages farm businesses are at in the process. And this farm business coaching, it's not a last resort service, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. Jill, I'm going to a couple of approaches to the question. There's never a good time to be coached. There's never the wrong time either. And in terms of it being a last resort, yeah, absolutely, a coach can help you through crisis, but sometimes it's actually about taking good to great and being brave enough for long enough to have some fresh eyes come in and again question the status quo and say, and for me, one of the questions, the most simple, pragmatic questions you can ask is, why do you do that? And again, history and legacy, which we know is entrenched in farming, and we often do things out of respect for generations before, not necessarily because it's the most productive, the most efficient, the safest, whatever it might be. So, and then when, and in line with John's earlier comment around it wasn't my idea, sometimes if someone says, oh, that could work, you go, oh, I might have a look at it now. So allowing someone to maybe give you the confidence to try something new. So absolutely any business that is interested in improving, whether it's their resilience, and this is outside the program, is if you're not necessarily an expert in any field, get some support. We often run an accountant in our business, maybe a nutritionist or an agronomist or whoever it might be. I see a business coach as that professional that'll help you work on your business, as well as some of those operational professionals that we often engage in our business.
It's that opportunity to have a team of people, professional services around your business. As important as a lawyer, an accountant, is
100%.
the business coach that holds you accountable, helps farming family businesses to bring in new ideas from maybe participants within the family who haven't been listened to before.
Yeah.
Stuart said something really interesting. He said, farmers are very decisive.
Yeah.
But that can be a real problem if farmers spend all their time down the paddock or out in the boat and don't have information.
And Stuart did say, and they'll go and get the information. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes they make a rash decision based on some hearsay or a magazine or newspaper article.
Or they heard it at the pub.
Heard it, yes.
Read it in the land.
Read it in the land. You know, are they scrolling their wife's social media because they probably don't have Facebook themselves? But yeah, absolutely. Helping that decision-making process and making sure that the right information is considered. And also quite often a coachee will come to me and say, oh, what do you reckon about this? I'm like, oh, mate, that's a research piece, which is a little bit of code for I don't know the answer, but also code for we can't make a decision on that until we get a bit more of a lay of the land. And how grateful are we these days that we do have access to great information. Yeah. And even it might be if you're coaching someone who is quite decisive and direct and forward going, like giving them a little sort of woo up and saying, hey, that looks good on paper or looks good in theory. Let's make sure it does look good on paper, and encouraging them to seek the information they need before decisions are made.
I'm sure one of those, when you have a research question like that and you go back to the farmer and say, okay, there is a research question here. Let me pull in resources from Department of Primary Industries.
Oh, 100%.
Let me pull in resources from the research stations or the local land services. Let's gear you up with all the information so you can then make a decision. Yeah. A business coach is really helping someone look outside the fences to know how to make those decisions. Tell me about some of your recent clients. Obviously no names or specifics, but tell me about some decisions they've made which have made them more resilient.
Yeah, for sure. We, as with Stuart, have had a range of clients, and I will promise I haven't been an expert in many or any of the industries really that we've ended up coaching in.
You don't need to be the expert in the industry. You're the coach, they are the expert in their industry.
Or you're connecting them, and whether it's me connecting them or encouraging them to find those connections. A couple of recent examples. I love sort of product diversity and diversification in business, especially if it can materialise some efficiencies or some productivities. And we've had businesses add really new arms to their business, either completely new that were outside of their core business at the beginning of the coaching.
What's an example of that? It's like someone who grows, has a traditional cattle business, goes and produces bone broth for the Sydney market. What's an example?
Well, we've had a flour producer that now runs floral arranging workshops using her own products, but also has a dried flour and a dahlia tuber business that it was a throwaway comment that she has excess dahlia tubers, but there's a real opportunity in the market. Before you know it, we've connected her with a graphic designer. She's got a website and she's now making a real business out of that. We have, worked with a garlic producer, and this was an interesting one. And the model of the business coaching has slightly changed and will continue to evolve and be flexible and agile. But in an earlier iteration, we visited the farms and we visited these beautiful garlic producers down in the Canberra Basin, and they had these little miniature Highlanders, and they were talking about how they were trying to get another one and blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, we, as a group, and then we sort of continued it on, encouraged them to increase that herd at a rate of knots, and they did. And now...
How did they increase the rate of herd at the rate of knots? Because you can only breed so fast.
So we were talking about, they did have some funds that they could invest, and they went and there was a dispersal started and they bought heifers you know, rather, and that, don't get me wrong, at this point, these two little cows were their pets.
Yeah.
And it was actually a fellow a wool producer from Dubbo said, that's where your money is, and pointed at these little cows. And before you know it, we created a little business plan and ran some figures if we were to buy these heifers, and the cost of these, Jill, was incredible. But there's also another extension of that. Then we thought, well, hang on, what if we can encourage these people we sell these calves to have calves themselves, and that could be fun in your backyard in Sydney, or your hobby block on the outskirts of Sydney. So then they ended up buying a bull, and they're, you know, selling semen for the And so just examples, and look, that's a very sort of specific example, but one of the other examples in terms of decision making and is just even formalising communication structures within a family business. So where you've got some brothers, and we worked with a couple of really clever brothers, have a big Wagyu operation, and they got on really, really famously, and it was a really good operation. But when you involve some wives and some other external parties, we just that need to, again, professionalise some of the elements of their business. So
how did you do that? What would be an example of professionalising their business?
A little bit of separate. There was a lot of conversation around balance. So we separated work and life, even though they lived on farm, and that was necessitated. Both have small children, and we made sure even things, Jill, like, and this sounds so basic and fundamental, but until I said, guys, how long since you've had a breakaway with your family? Oh, we can't afford it. We can't afford not to. So putting some holidays and structure, the way they manage their teams, just sort of, when I say professionalising, formalising some of that, so it's not as ad hoc, and I hope that works. And it was a bit more
like a regular meeting.
Yes, correct. So as it turned out, we had that monthly meeting that wives were involved in. We talked about what's on, what are the pressure points, how's everyone travelling, open lines of communication, allocation of people and product, and all of the things that were going to make that next month a success. And then that then fed into a weekly operational team meeting. So everyone, when we talk about that roadmap, Jill, everyone was on the same page. They're on the same path. They're on the same bus. And we looked really specifically about where there was any, not necessarily conflict, but where we're deviating, getting off track, what was causing that, and sort of.
And do you attend all those meetings, or do you set them up and then set them free?
Depends. Throughout this program, not necessarily, but absolutely, I've run some of these meetings with other clients I've worked with as a coach and consultant to make sure that those structures were set up. We definitely have got some great templates that we provide. And also, again, back to the comment, they're not necessarily all mine. They're things I've seen along the way and go, oh, that's cool. Can I use that? And they're like, sure. So it's a collection and collation of a lot of resources over a lot of years that we can then share. And I'll say to the coaches, now this is a word template. If it's not right for you, throw it out or change it, change the column, change the heading. So just facilitating the process, and a slight tweak, say back to that business with the Wagyus, I could see that there was a little bit of an underlying, one brother was putting children on the bus, and one brother was getting staff members sorted for the morning, and I could just pick up, and they were mates, and it was tight. But in 20 years, what was that? The kids are not catching a bus, but so just saying, hey, can I be brave enough to say, does that frustrate you slightly, or does that? And I'm not interested in poking the bear, but I am interested in making sure that the symptoms that are manifesting to the top are really the ones that are genuinely.
And you have to be brave to ask those questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been great to look over the case study that Stuart Goodfellow provided to us, because he really does have a very strategic approach. You spoke about templates. We were able to look at all the templates he had in his office. So it's a really wonderful service. How we've chatted about eligibility. Is there anything someone needs to know about their application? I mean, Stuart made it sound very simple. You just put it in. Is it hard?
No, it's not hard. If you do absolutely do a 3 to 5 minute online, and then as the intake begins, there is an interview process, and that's I guess
what are they looking for?
Integrity of the operation, and do you have the time and willingness to commit? Are you a bona fide farming business? But also a lot of those questions, Jill, are around suitability. Aligning you with the right coach. And we also did surveys on our coaching style, and we've all been through some of those behavioural questions to know how we prefer to coach, so then we can be matched with people that not only have that content requirement that matches our skill set, but also we will give ourselves the best chance to click with. So definitely not an intimidating process, but let's own it. It's our hard-earned department funding. We want to know that it's going to the people who are going to use it. Like if you go back to John and Jackson, they're now talking about the investment of the department returning end on end for their business. Like that, that's incredible.
He can see the impact.
I got my money in, but I was allocated and I quit. So
he said oysters are growing faster, fatter.
Oh, I liked it.
He can see his market going from 4 to 5 months, his growing season, to 6 to 7 months, being able to put a product into the market.
Yeah. So I guess my comment on that is, if you are a bona fide producer and you're looking to improve your business and build your resilience, this is the program for you. And I'm going to say, we'll get in. Do not, it's not at all careful, but there's also the reputation of the business, of the opportunity has grown, the availability of coaches and allocation. We're being as flexible and agile to deliver the service to as many people as possible. And at the moment, for example, there's a little, what we're calling an intense round of 3 months. It's still the same amount of coaching, but it has been concertinaed. And look, that may change again based on feedback, based on the requirement of the producers, because at the end of the day, the Future Drought Fund really is about building the resilience of primary producers, fishers and farmers across New South Wales, and this program will continue to evolve to do that. And I'm involved with a couple, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm involved in a couple of other programs. I'm allowed to say that. What I don't know if I'm allowed to say is this one's so far in front, it's lonely. It's incredible.
It's a really good program.
It's a good program.
This program was born out of the Future Drought Fund. It was born out of Department of Primary Industries, and it's also born out of the need for farming businesses to be more resilient post-drought. Now, 2020, worst drought in known European history in Australia. And one of the challenges we face right now is regional parts of New South Wales are back in drought. We've got some areas drought declared or awaiting a declaration status. Are you seeing more people come to the program or seeking out different services as a result of this drier weather?
It's a really interesting time, isn't it? And I'm seeing that the shock of the last drought hasn't subsided enough, and the need enough, and it's still quite raw. There's some talk around we can't go through this again, we can't do it again. So that requirement to make some really calculated decisions is there and on the table. And you mentioned 2020. Well, we're aware we've got country at Dirranbandi. It's drier than that in the last 12 months.
Right.
So we have actually nearly matched that record year. And the fact that we came off a decent season, it's actually, the mentality is a little bit tricky, isn't it, at the moment? And tricky is an interesting use of words. I don't know if tricky is the right word. For me, it's even a little bit alarming. Are we seeing people come through? Either yes and being proactive, or no one sticking their head in the sand. I don't know if there's much middle ground, Jill, which makes me a bit nervous.
It certainly brings up levels of stress for me, thinking about going back into drought, and probably just encourage anyone listening that if you are feeling the impact of stress of going back into drought, please reach out for help as soon as you can. I've got some questions that have come in. Millie has messaged us to say she's loving the chat and she's interested to know, have you seen an evolution in the farming community's attitude to honouring traditional or legacy while also driving forward with change? So honouring traditional farming practices while also really pushing forward with change.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it really is a blend of tradition and progress, isn't it? So Dr. Ian Plowman's work, he talks a lot about the level of innovation in farming and what drives that, and it is around whether the industry is more likely to be multi-generational, because if Pop's still on the farm penciling in the sheep yards, or he's still the one that drives the chaser bin, the likelihood of doing it Pop's way. So I think there's some really delicate and gentle conversations that do happen there, and when they do happen well and with respect, progress is embraced a little bit more wholeheartedly. And have I seen a shift? I think there's been a shift in necessity over the last 15 years. So around being more compliant, it's around being more efficient and productive. So doing things the way we've always done them and getting the results we've always got won't necessarily cut it. So maybe a shift out of necessity, and when it's done with respect, there can be the harmony that we're hoping for. Because like I said, in farming, if we're farming with our family, you can't just quit your job and leave. You're usually living next door, and it's affecting the Christmas table, Jill. So whether or not I've answered Millie's question, I think, yeah, there has been a shift out of necessity. And the other work that Ian Plowman's done is the link between that innovation and the profitability of the industry. Because if Pop can afford to leave the farm, we then try different things. And I just say that respectfully. So whether or not the profitability is there, to invest in new machinery, equipment, technology, learning, time off farm, working on your business as much as the grind of working in it.
We spoke about this with Len Sykes and with Isabel Knight, that if farming is all Pop's ever known and all Pop's ever done, the ability for change or for them to leave farming is very low.
Oh yeah.
And as you mentioned, change within farming can happen if we're not tied to what we've always done.
Yeah, and I think also there can be a real sense of loss when that farm wasn't a job. It was your home. It was your life. It was your life. And there's some pretty scary research about how many days a year farmers don't think about their farm. I don't mind that they probably think about them. I know my dad thinks about our farm.
Don't know, I had to research that very hard. No, zero.
Yeah, zero. And even when you've got a day off, you go for a quick lap, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got a question come in from Lyndall, and if you do have questions, please do drop them in the chat. Beck, do you find farmers who engage in coaching become more willing to think about plans for farm succession because there is an independent person involved?
I think so. I also, and we spoke about this off camera, Jill, before the session, around having a coach in the room or any external in the room. We behave ourselves a bit better. So we operate with a little higher level of respect by default. So maybe conversations that were typically shut down, a little bit more airtime, and also can be caged in a different way. It can be seen as coming from a neutral place. So if succession is that for you, or it might be around expansion or reduction or whatever your touchy subject is, I believe a coach can facilitate that conversation a bit more gently and respectfully. And it might be if as a coach you pick up that there is a contentious issue, sometimes you call it and you say, look, I can see there's some anxiety being created here. Is it a time and place to table it, or is it something that we're not ready to? And if we do want to go down that path, being really transparent and respectful of the process and saying, look, let's acknowledge the feelings so some of that sort of more gentle conversation that's a little bit more, I'm going to use the word again, professional, and it can sometimes take the emotion out of it. And I know when my dad's in the room, he's a bit better behaved if there's a stranger.
Everyone's family is better behaved if there's a stranger. In the Rural Financial Counselling Service webinar, one of the comments from the counsellors was that any at-risk farm business can access our services. If a farm business does not have a succession plan, they are considered at risk.
Wow.
Do you ask the businesses that you're coaching, do you ask them if they have a succession plan? Do you open that can of worms?
Oh, absolutely. We ask this. By the end of it, we're a pretty good mate.
Do many
There's
of
not
them?
much that's off the table. But in terms
do many of them have it?
Look, I'm going to suggest a lot of them. If I was going to slap some statistics around, I'd say maybe 30% head in the sand. 30% have started, or maybe a bigger portion. Yeah, we've started the conversations. It's not final, but there is a higher appetite. And say, for example, the incredible team at Proactive do such great work that there is a higher portion that are seeing the value in investing properly to do it, and especially if there's complexities around off-farm children and or siblings and the like. So we do end up finding out where we're at and who else is involved in the business just through some really general questions and getting the lay of the land. And who's still around, who's moved on, who's who in the zoo. So we usually table the question, if you will, and as it comes back, we're dealing with that. I do understand, and we can seek some clarity on this and maybe distribute it, but anyone who has been involved in the coaching program does get some support around some of the earlier conversations in succession.
Yes.
And that opportunity, I understand, exists if it through the process.
One of the things that Proactive said in the webinar we did with Proactive is, while it is an important process that requires external support, you can't afford not to do it.
100%. It was interesting. I, on behalf of the program, did some work with beautiful Jess, the general manager of Proactive. We did attended a couple of sessions together. Anyway, I was speaking about running a successful business, and then she was to speak about succession planning after, and she hopped up and said, if you do what Beck said, you won't really need me. And it was about putting those systems and structure and communication plans and understanding that clarity of direction. So and we talked about how the first portion of my presentation mirrored hers. So it was interesting to suggest, and it was just about planning.
Smart farm businesses are well planned.
Yeah, are well planned.
I've got a couple more questions. So given we're getting close to the end of time, we're going to go rapid fire through these questions. But this one from Greg: I see farmers in the dairy industry come up with excellent plans following initial consultation goal setting, though many seem to lose motivation on the actions over time, in 6 to 12 months. Do you see that a lot? What do you recommend to remedy that?
Absolutely. And look, we're in a rapid fire phase of the program at the moment where I'm hoping to set up with my current coachees some stuff with the hope they're going to do it when I leave. And I said earlier in the piece, accountability is such a valuable asset. We run the alumni program for the coaching program, and we set up a peer-to-peer mentoring process to counteract some of that, Jill, because it's so true. Like, I don't have to
So the alumni get folded into a network, and they check back in every 6 months, say?
Well, no, what we do is we pair two like-minded businesses and say, hey, you don't have a coach anymore, but check in with them. And look, functional and still in its earlier iterations, but that peer-to-peer mentoring can act for that accountability. But if you haven't been involved in coaching, find someone who thinks either like you or challenges your thinking and say, hey, I need you to keep me on track. How can I, how can I do that? And maybe it is a bit of a, mates keeping each other, because I do believe accountability, in line with what Greg is saying, is really, really tricky.
Greg's also asked, is there any insights that are common across industries? So he's seeing the dairy farmers lose their motivation. They set up their goals, they do their goal setting, and then they lose their motivation. Are there other industries that are similar to the dairy industry, and have they overcome it?
I'm going to turn the question on its head and suggest that some of the greatest wins we have in the coaching program is improvement in planning and improvement in communication. So that's where there's the biggest opportunities for growth across, irrespective of the industry. So planning and also improving efficiencies.
Mel's asked, hi Beck, have you had any of the farmers continue working with you after the coaching program?
Yes, we have. Yeah,
fantastic.
We have a limited capacity. And the other thing, Jill, is I'm really conscious, if I believe we've done enough with the coaching and they need to stop the talking and start the doing, back to Greg's comment, I'm going to say, Hoy, go and do what we've started, finish it off, and then come back to me. But yes, there are some coaching programs, coachees that we continue to work with.
Incredible. What happens in the first coaching session?
We chew the fat. I get to know them, get to know the coachees, ask lots of questions, and then we pretty quickly move into ask questions around where do you want to be in 10 years' time, right? We're getting people writing their own eulogies and ads for their farm business.
Yeah, wow.
If you want to sell your business in 50 years, what is the world saying about you? What's on the front page of the land? And then we start reverse engineering that. So really understanding what you're trying to achieve. And then the next stage is, right, that's what you want. Where are you currently at? So getting that state of play.
One more question on process that's come in. What's the intensity and interval between sessions? So if someone's watching this thinking, can I really commit to this?
So it depends. The program is really flexible and agile to meet the needs of a cohort at the time and also requirements of the program at large. We have I've been involved in everything from a 12-month coaching program with a fortnightly session to, at the moment, we're fairly intense, 3 months, hour and a half every week.
Wow.
Yeah. And look, we've penciled in a session on Sunday, but that commitment is what's going to bring value to these businesses, and that I'm happy to give up my Sunday when they're happy to give up theirs.
Well, Beck, that brings me to my last question. You're running your own business as well. You've got family. You've got so many things on your plate. Why do you do business coaching?
That's a really good question. I like turning a question on its head. I wouldn't do it if I didn't think we brought value. And so if we can make the tiniest change, and this is all, an expected answer, but we do say no to a lot of incredible projects that have come across our desk. And this one was difficult. Was difficult to say no to, and I hope I don't ever have to say no, because we know we've made some tangible change. So that's why we do give up Sundays. Sorry to my cute husband, and so that's why we do it, because if we can make the tiniest change, some businesses big change, some businesses little change, sometimes it's a slow burn, sometimes it's a long game, sometimes we're in there hard and fast, improving resilience of these beautiful businesses. So they're here and leaving a resource in better condition. And a professional farming businesses, we farm incredible value in sometimes a cowboy wage deal. And so that's probably why we like to try to make a tiny little change. And I know that's a really predictable answer.
I think you really love what you do, and you're good at it. You've got a lot of experience. And we started the session by talking about the 500 farms you've been on across Australia. Well, that's 500 farming organisations that have been so lucky to have you in their operations. Thank you for joining us here today. I've got some feedback from a participant in the course. Her name's Eloise, and she said, I highly recommend the Farm Business Resilience Program course. There's been amazing outcomes, and accountability was the key. She said, we now have great direction. We have a comprehensive business plan. We have allocated time working on the business, not just in it, and it's been invaluable. And she said, thank you.
Oh, lovely.
Thank you, Beck. So thank you everyone for joining. Today wraps up the 5th webinar in the Smart Farm Business Resilience series. We are going to join again next Wednesday, where we will be talking about ag tech, and we'll be visiting 2 farms as part of our case studies, one a macadamia farm, the other blackberry, blueberry, raspberry farm. It was delicious. We'll circulate the link to apply for the program, the Farm Business Resilience Program, and we'll put that both in the chat and we'll circulate it to everyone who's registered for the program. Please keep an eye out on social media channels and in your email inbox for the final webinar in this series, which is focused on ag tech. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next time.